Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys and Magic. This is Hunter, Shane, Steven, and David. Say what up, boys.
Yo.
What up, boys?
What up, nerds?
We are coming at you with a video today, October 27th. They announced, following the stream earlier today, we got a bunch of new spoilers from Brothers War. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into it right away with these first three. We don't really need to talk about too much, but these are the retro frame artifacts. They are the blueprints, but it's some reprints. So, what do we think about the art on these? We don't need to talk about them. Obviously, we know it's Ornithopter, Ashnod's Altar, and Goblin Charbelcher.
I mean, I think the art's beautiful. Really like the Ashnod's Altar one.
We need to have Ashnod's for sure.
Actually, I'm here for the Goblin Charbelcher. It tells you like the things that you can load up inside of it. I'm assuming there's like chicken, all those other things in the background, and then like what you don't put inside of it is obviously a cannonball.
Yeah.
Or like firecrackers. You load the goblin into it instead. So
yeah, you put the helmet on the goblin to the bucket.
Yeah.
Absolutely. David, I know you're a fan of Ashnod's Altar. What do you think of it getting another reprint?
I think it's super cool. I am very curious because I know that last time we got something similar to this in Strixhaven, some of them were standard legal and some of them were non-standard legal. So I'm kind of curious to see like, are they going to do the same thing here? Because I mean, Goblin Charbelcher is the centerpiece of a legacy deck. I don't think it would be good in standard just because of like the severe restrictions that it would require. Ashnod's Altar on its own is absolutely insane. It's a huge combo piece in a lot of like EDH decks. So I think that Ashnod's Altar would probably be too powerful. And then Ornithopter, I think, honestly, kind of surprised we're not just getting like a standard version of the card. Maybe we are. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm kind of excited for Ornithopter. It's in my Satoru Umezawa deck.
Ornithopter's been printed in standard, what, a couple sets ago?
Yeah.
I think we've seen it recently, yeah.
Yeah,
this part was definitely the best.
I don't know. That's why I was just saying, like, I'm kind of surprised to see it in here. Maybe there's a little bit of crossover or something like that. I don't know. It's a cool card, and I definitely think that like it's fine in standard.
Next up, we are finishing the cycle of Painlands. This is Battlefield Forge, Lanamore Wastes, Underground River, and Brushland.
This art is amazing.
You like it?
I really do.
Shane. I actually like the way that it kind of like tries to line up with like World War I style trenches, especially like on the Brushland. I think that's really cool, and you see that in some of the artwork for some of the other cards too.
Yeah, it shows like different time periods they were saying too. Really rad.
Real quick for Shane, since I know he plays standard a bit. Battlefield Forge is the Boros Painland. Do you think Boros returns to standard? Because that's what it was missing, is a dual land for Boros. It's gone.
Yeah, because there was that Boros aggro deck that was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I can see it.
I guess we'll see.
I'm not a big fan of Painlands.
They hurt, dude.
The only Painland I want is the one that fetches me what I ask for.
Ooh. Next up, we have a meld. So I'm just going to put all three cards up on the screen. We'll go through it one at a time. The first one is Titania, Voice of Gaia. It's 1 and 2 green for a 3/4 legendary creature elemental. It has reach. It says whenever one or more lands are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you gain 2 life. It also says at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more land cards in your graveyard and you both own and control Titania, Voice of Gaia, and a land named Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, exile them, then meld them into Titania, Gaia Incarnate. First things first, let's talk about this card as itself. What do we think?
Amazing.
You like it that much?
Kind of forgettable.
I would say I think it's not amazing, but I don't think it's horrible. I could see it being maybe played in standard. And what, Steven, you want to make this like a commander?
I mean, even if it's not a commander in a green deck, I'm just thinking like a bunch of like landfall decks, like the last set we just currently had. What was the Badger dude? Made badgers when lands enter the battlefield.
I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. In my mind, lands going into your graveyard with between fetches, lands going into the graveyard with like different sacrificing instances that, you sacrifice a land, you go fetch a land, so then you're adding land to the battlefield. I think this card can be very busted, especially when built correctly.
I mean, I don't know if busted's right. I mean, I can see what you're saying, but the gaining 2 life, is that really that's not game breaking? I get that
That's-
on
You
the
can
backside.
gain
I
an
don't know,
absolute shit ton of life with this deck.
but you can't win with that.
Like I'm with Shane on this one. I look at it like there's a couple things on here. So it's whenever one or more. So if you happen to mill over like 4 lands, you're only gaining 2 life. I understand that, yeah, there's multiple ways to proc it in a single turn, but ultimately, like, how much life do you need to gain before this card actually starts to do relevant things? I think
All
the
the
best
life.
thing about it is the fact that it's for 3 mana, it's got a 4 power boot, or I'm sorry, it's got 4 toughness. So it's got a relatively big butt and it can block things with flying.
Yeah, I think the part that's relevant is definitely the backside. Backside's pretty nuts. We'll get there in a minute.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Shane and David on this one. It's kind of really not great. It's cool. It's not great. But we'll talk about the land that you can meld with it. It's Argoth, Sanctum of Nature. It says it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature. If you had Titania on the field, it would come in untapped, obviously. It taps for a green. You can also pay 2 and 2 green to tap it to create a 2/2 green bear creature token, then mill 3 cards. Activate only as a sorcery. Shane's favorite sentence.
Yeah. Hey, but Steven, I think this part is much more relevant than the Titania part.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I just think there are tons of cards that go into this deck that make it way better than what you guys are saying. Obviously, we're just kind of talking about like first impressions. I just,
Yeah.
I'm not deep diving into this. We can do that for commander grades if we want, but I mean, I like this card, the land card, because
Yeah, I do
obviously
too.
there's a ton of things that can go fetch lands, so you can go get this and then get your meld off.
Your
I'm,
Melba.
I'm not a fan of this either, to be completely honest. I'm just not like Titania. I think it's a whole lot better whenever you have access to more tools to make her work. From a standard perspective, like you're not going to have fetch lands or anything like that. And then the Argoth land itself, it enters the battlefield tapped unless you meet its incredibly restrictive restriction. And then its really only ability on here is you can make a 2/2. You are going to mill yourself, so I guess if you're playing like a Graveyard Matters deck or something like that, that's cool. The activate only as a sorcery also means that like you're spending 4 mana and tapping this on your turn. That's 5 lands essentially that I'm going to assume you're tapping down to make a 2/2.
This card is definitely the shittier of the two.
I think both are very, very underpowered.
I think I like that this is not a legendary. Like the fact that you can actually have multiple copies in your standard deck. Remember before we had those land cycles that were legendary, right? And you're like, okay, cool, really cool effect, but you only get one of, so don't play more than one in your deck. But at least here,
The
they
only
make it
reason
easier to
why
get.
I'm not a big fan of these in a commander format or even in standard, I'm assuming is like if when you have these both on the field and you meld them, you're exiling them.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and interject real quick because we actually did play last night. Hunter, Shane, and myself, and Shane and Hunter, was the Mishra meld a problem?
Yes.
No.
Wait. Are you saying was the card a problem?
Yes,
the
was the
card
card itself a problem?
Yes,
Did
the card was
the
a big problem.
So I don't think the meld part about it is a downside here. I understand that, like, yeah, you're gonna get one shot with it, but like if you have any reliable form of protection, what these things meld into are like absolute must die on site cards.
Yeah, nuts.
Speaking of which, let's talk about what it melds into. Titania Gaia Incarnate. It is a star legendary creature elemental avatar. It's got vigilance, reach, trample, and haste. It says its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. And when it enters the battlefield, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. You also pay 3 and a green to put 4+1/+1 counters on a target land you control. It becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. That's a lot of stuff.
This is a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of great stuff.
I think we
is.
broke Scape Shift.
I think we
Yeah.
broke Skewed Swarm.
Skewed. Yeah, but I mean, just by itself, vigilance, reach, trample, haste is wild.
And
Yeah.
dude, like you said, Steven, in the beginning, you're cracking lands, you're milling lands. Like you could very easily grab 7, 8 lands, dump on the battlefield that turn.
No, 100%. I mean, I think the only downside, I think this card was super great. and like the guy designing it was just like, okay, now I need to put something that makes it really shitty, and they all come in tapped.
He said, "What can I do to make Ren and 7 better in standard?"
If I saw Titania in standard, I might be a little scared. I'm not gonna lie.
It's gonna be in standard, dude. Like
I know,
this,
but I'm just saying.
this with Ren and 7 is a powerhouse.
I want to see how the deck actually functions.
Like,
Hunter, are you thinking about putting this in Windgrace?
100%. I'll put this entire combo in it.
like I look at Titania, and for like a standard perspective, the meld, or I'm sorry, yeah, the meld version of this, I don't see this being any smaller than like a 6/6 at minimum.
Mhm.
And that on its own with all those abilities is a huge threat. And I'm gonna say that's probably as bad as this card's gonna get.
Meaning it could get better.
I think the floor for this is like, this is gonna come out as like a 6/6 with vigilance, reach, trample, and haste, and your opponents are just gonna have like, they're gonna have to kill it immediately, because if it does sit around, you're gonna be able to start putting those counters on your lands. And then even like if it doesn't stick around, if you are building around this, which you probably should be, you're returning. I don't have no idea how many even lands like you
Yeah.
could be
At
bringing
least
back from the
4.
graveyard.
Yeah,
At least 4.
Well, dude, because you can get this on curve. Like this is actually the cheapest meld we've seen, right? This is so cheap to meld.
You have to get the lands in the graveyard.
That's true, but the fact that it's not, if you can do that your first couple turns, turn 3, or I guess if you can maybe ramp out a little bit, I don't know. You could have Titania the Incarnate on the field like turn 4, or sooner.
True. But let's go ahead and move on to the next card. Next up, we have Mishra, Tamer of Fawa. Am I saying that right, David?
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
It is 3 a black and a red for a 4/4 legendary creature human artificer. It says permanents you control have ward, sacrifice a permanent. And each artifact card in your graveyard has unearth 1 a black and a red. If you guys don't remember what unearth is, you can pay 1 a black and a red to return the card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield. Unearth only as a sorcery.
You know, I think every time I love like a Rakdos card, David hates it, but I can't see David hating this.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm really curious. We always say, what's the Rakdos player gonna want, or like, what are they gonna say? David.
Yeah, I
say it,
feel like we always like, oh, David would love this, and then he's like, nah, I hate it. But
I mean,
I
I
can't
love
see.
this ward ability. I just want to say that right now.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you love
burst all
Ward.
of your bubbles.
Come on,
He
David,
hates-
no
he hates
way.
this card.
I absolutely hate this card. How in the world could this incredibly overpowered and super pushed thing cost 5 mana and not 4?
Yeah.
No, I'm fucking with you. This card is really powerful. I actually love this thing.
Thank
this
God.
card is nuts, dude.
Finally, dude. I think I can go to bed at like, easy tonight.
I mean, the only thing about this that I think like really frustrates me is I just built the other Mishra. So now I feel like it's like, do I build this Mishra and just have 2 Mishra decks, or like, what do I do now? Oh God, there's
very different
3.
things.
There's 3.
There is 3, yeah.
I know you didn't want to talk
Fuck.
about it, but I figured since because you could do all these, and we might as well just talk about what do you think? The baby version of these.
I do love the fact that they have a young version, like a semi-adult version, and then like the old style version of these guys.
It's great storytelling. Like they're doing amazing.
I know that. Okay, I'm gonna go on my little rant real quick. Somebody pointed this out on a Reddit post for the young Mishra and the young Urza, that the 2 of which the artworks look like they might actually form like a panorama. And then somebody else had pointed out that they don't actually line up perfectly. It's almost like there's a space in between. So if they do end up doing Urza and Mishra's teacher, it would potentially work really well. It's like a 3-card panorama. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I think that would be really fucking cool.
It would be really cool.
But back to Mishra, Tamer of Fawa, or Fawa, however you pronounce that thing's name. The ward is really cool, and the unearth is fucking devastating, just because it's only 3. So like, if you have an artifact that costs 11, you unearth it still for just 3. I think your opponents are probably just gonna have to kill this thing as soon as you play it. And at a bare minimum, that means you're sacrificing a permanent.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's such a good ward, man.
It's really good, dude.
I
love
mean,
this
I think
card.
it's. I just love the fact that it's not just a ward that protects just Mishra.
I know.
Permanence, dude.
It's permanence too. So like this even covers your lands.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but like that's just extra. It's awesome.
Yep.
I love it.
All right, Mishra. Awesome. Next up, Urza, Prince of Kroog. Urza, Prince of Kroog is 2, a white and a blue for a 2/3 legendary creature, human artificer. This artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. You also pay 6 to create a token that's a copy of target artifact you control, except it's a 1/1 soldier creature in addition to its other types.
Amazing.
Like an EDH standpoint, yeah, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and apologize to all the viewers. I hate playing standard, so I do
Okay,
apologize.
Yeah.
Me and Shane are the standard players here. We can talk
So
standard.
so you play this, and I think that honestly, even just in standard, this is still probably really good. We're leading
Yeah.
into an artifact set, and like the number of small artifact creatures that you can just drop on the early turns is probably going to be insane. So I just look at it like this: if you have like an Ornithopter that's in standard, that's a 0 mana 2/3 with flying with this thing in play.
Yep.
It's not game breaking, but Urza is going to accumulate for a lot of value. And its second ability, I know that paying 6 mana is a lot, but there's definitely ways to make that a little bit cheaper. And although you're making the copy a 1/1, like you're still getting, like you're abusing the ETB. And technically it's not even really a 1/1 because he's pumping that 1/1. You're making a 3/3 copy of it.
Yeah, I think going off of what you just said, David, is I think the reason why I like this card the most is because I just saw Shane play Marnius, and he basically this is kind of like the same aspect where this is actually cheaper. You pay 4 instead of 5. Is Marnius 4, Shane?
Marnie says 6.
No. I'm talking about to cast.
The cast is 5. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so this is 1 less to cast, and then he still has the 6 cost to create, a token or whatever. So this is basically the same thing. And then Shane, you had those cards that kind of made it cheaper too, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
That and this goes infinite with a certain combo, so this is fantastic. I love infinite combos.
We know.
I know.
Yeah, so far Mishra and Urza. Who would have thought? Pretty good cards.
They're a little thing
Turns
right there
out.
from the video.
2 of the most powerful fucking entities story-wise from all of Magic. Cards are actually pretty fucking good.
So you're saying they did good, David?
Yeah, I think that they're pretty
far,
solid
yeah.
so far.
Good. I'm excited.
Next up, we have a new card that has a new mechanic. This is Phyrexian Fleshgorger, which is 7 mana for a 7/5 artifact creature, Phyrexian Worm. It also has Prototype, which says you may cast this spell with different mana cost, color, and size. It keeps its abilities and types, which is a 1 and 2 black for a 3/3. But it also has Menace and Lifelink and Ward pay life equal to Phyrexian Fleshgorger's power.
Hunter, how you liking that word?
I think it's cool. I mean, for the 7 mana, it's a lot, which probably will make it a lot harder to kill. But if you're
Dude.
paying that 3 mana, it's only 3.
Dude.
I mean, it's 3 mana for a 3/3 Menace Lifelinker. It's 7 mana for a 7/5 Menace Lifelinker, and it's got the Ward ability either way.
Yep.
It's true.
The Prototype is going to be sick, dude.
Let's actually talk real quick just about the mechanic itself, because I think that that's really just kind of why they showcase this card.
Yeah.
I think it's a broken mechanic.
Interesting. I think that this is the mythic flagship that they want you to get really excited with. And ultimately, this mechanic is actually just kicker, but specifically only for artifacts.
I do not agree that it's a kicker. It's a cheaper cost that you get the effects on the card still.
No. It's a 3 mana 3/3 that you can pay 7 mana for to quote unquote, this is my air quotes, kick it to make it a 7/5 instead.
Oh, you're saying a reverse kicker.
Yeah, it's the kicker mechanic that functions almost identically.
I think the difference there is that this card, it'll be a 7 mana 7/5 anywhere else. Your graveyard, your deck. It's not like the kicker. You can't get around that, right?
Oh no, I understand what you guys are saying, and like, look, my analogy here and my description for it, yes, it is more of like a reverse kicker. I'm just kind of highlighting the fact that the mechanics have a huge amount of overlap.
I can see that. I think it's just relevant to the fact that it stays a 7/5/7 mana anywhere else in the game, or
I have a question.
What's up?
Can you just put this in any deck, or this has to go in a deck with swamps?
If you're playing an EDH, this must go in a black deck.
Yeah, it's got the pips on it.
God damn it.
Pips don't lie, dude.
If you're playing this in standard, you can put it in whatever the hell color deck you want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I get where David's coming from, but I will believe the hype, and I'm excited for prototype. Excited to see. I think it's broken as well, Hunter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really curious to see what other abilities they're putting on these prototype cards.
I think it's good. My only thing and my concern is like this is a mythic prototype, so they're only going to get worse from here.
Possibly.
Or there could be more mythic prototypes.
I mean, they're some pretty good rare cards. You never know, dude.
I mean, I really hope that they have better cards, because if this is the flagship, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is really cool, but
There might be more. We'll see.
Steven, you are entitled to your opinion, but you're wrong.
All right, moving on to a familiar face. This is Teferi, Temporal Pilgrim. Teferi Temporal Pilgrim is 3 and 2 blue for a legendary planeswalker with a starting loyalty of 4. Has a static ability that says whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. Its abilities are a 0 cost to draw a card, a -2 to create a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance, and whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and a -12 that says target opponent chooses a permanent they control and returns it to its owner's hand. Then they shuffle each non-land permanent they control into its owner's library.
Dude,
this is stupid.
this is stupid.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say before we've seen anything else from this set, this is my least favorite card in the entire set, and I think
You're
this
a
is
fucking
awful
idiot.
design.
Awful
because
design.
it's broken, right, David?
So okay, here's my thought. In looking over this card, its 0 ability of draw card is a functional +1 because it'll put a +1/+1 counter on it.
Yeah,
Aside from that, if you play this in standard, he might be okay. If you play this in EDH, you can just drop this, follow this up with like a windmill, and then
Yeah,
And then
it's
minus
not difficult to be able to ult him basically immediately. And then like at that, what are you doing? You're like hardcore steroided up cyclonic rifting, but for one player, you're killing a player essentially because you're getting rid of all their mana rocks and stuff. You're shuffling it away. You're basically just saying like this target player doesn't get the ability to play the game anymore. Like,
Yep.
I look at it like cards like Ameria are banned because like you drop it and you just like name the color of like the one mono color player at the table, and like that player just doesn't get to play the game anymore. I really wish his ultimate was just like all of your opponents choose one instead of just target, because like this doesn't speed the game up at all. It just it doesn't even really help you win. It just nukes one person without even actually killing them. They just get to sit there in like a game of EDH for the next hour and a half, however long the game goes on, and not play.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
not even looking
this is stats.
This does exactly what blue does. It tells somebody no.
I mean, yes, and don't overlook the -2 ability either.
No,
Like,
yeah, I think it's
that spirit is going to grow very quickly.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think anyone looked at the -2 that hard.
I mean,
Hey,
that
man,
you
that
should.
-2 is very good.
I'm not saying it's bad, but what I'm saying is people are going to go ahead and be playing, like they're going to be playing this card, and they're going to be looking to -12 as soon as it hits the fucking ground.
From a standard standpoint, I think a blue-black deck with this and Shieldred is gonna be a thing.
That could be fun.
It's on curve too.
Yeah, I think this. I get where David's coming from. That he doesn't think it's great design, but I'll put this in a stacks deck, dude. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you, David. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but just the coolness factor of this, it gets me excited. It gets me going, and I don't mind. I understand that at the same time you are just telling one person instead of possibly 3 if you're playing Commander, but I'm okay with just telling that one person to just walk away and come back a little later.
See, That's the thing that pisses me off though, is like I would rather his -12 just say target player loses the game, because that's essentially what it does. But it doesn't actually kill them. It's just like all of your mana rocks are gone, all of your foundation is gone. Because like with a Cyclonic Rift, at least like you're able to rebuild that following turn, assuming they didn't just win the game. But with this, it's like you don't even have the opportunity to rebuild because all of your things just got shuffled.
Well, you better kill the Sunsight, man.
And that, well, see, that's my thing, is that like I don't think in a game of EDH you get the opportunity to kill this on site. It's not difficult to be able to drop this, and then if you have a couple of extra mana left over, be able to hit that draw engine and be able to get this up to be able to ultimate it immediately.
Get ready
I
for
mean,
a counter.
honest to God, dude, you only need 8 draws to get this to 12. You know what I mean? That's not hard.
I mean, you think this will survive 8 turns?
I don't think it needs to. I think it can ult the turn it drops. I played a deck with you yesterday in which I made everybody wheel twice in a single turn for 4 mana.
That's true.
It was 14 cards that everybody drew for 4 mana. And like in a game of EDH, that's really not difficult for me to do, to be able to drop this and then be able to start wheeling effects like that, where it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to pick the player that I want to bully, and I'm just going to nuke them and eliminate them from the game.
Plus, especially
Sounds
coming
like
from
a
an
fun
EDH,
thing to do, though.
It is. But coming from an EDH standpoint, there are cards that give planeswalkers double activated abilities.
100%.
So I mean, there are definitely ways to build around this to where you're getting tons of extra turns. This in a oh my god, I forgot the name of it. Super Friends decks is going to be nuts. I mean, there's so much versatility. I feel like. I mean, granted, technically I say versatility, but you're just choosing target opponent. But I love it. I really do.
I think we're all on board that this card is broken. I did see a post that said, "This is going in every blue dock I own."
Did Shane post that?
I might have.
So every deck he owns?
Next up, we have Gix, Yawgmoth Praetor. Gix, Yawgmoth Praetor is 1 and 2 black for a 3/3 legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor. It says whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do, they draw a card. You can also pay 4 and 3 black to discard X cards. Exile the top X cards of target opponent's library. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. So, that first ability, I am not a fan of. As we know, I do not like helping my opponents.
Second ability is pretty nasty.
Second ability, very nasty.
This card makes me so sad.
Because of the first ability?
No, all of it's awful. I actually hate everything about this card.
Even the art?
I mean, the art is cool, and like Gix is a fucking badass character. I just think what this card does is garbage.
I feel like it does a lot of politicking almost, right? Like, oh, don't
Well,
hit your opponents.
You're not going to be the player who benefits from this. I feel like black for the most part doesn't really do the go wide strategy super well. I don't. Okay, okay. Rewinding this and looking at this like just from the lens of a standard perspective, I think that this might just be fine. You'll, I don't know, attack in with your 1/1 or your 2/2 or whatever it is after you drop this on turn 3. And sure, you lose your 2 life and you draw your 2 cards, and then from there, like, your opponent is fucked. This actually in standard probably super powerful and just needs to kill on sight.
Yep.
Now, from an EDH perspective, I think your opponents in many cases are probably going to be able to outpace you for draw, which is never a good thing, because you're going to be playing mono black, and mono black just doesn't really go wide very well. And then the second thing too is you have to discard X cards for that 7 ability. So not only do you have to pay a fucking ton, you also then have to discard that number of cards, and then there's a whiff potential here. I can discard my hand, and this doesn't say draw back my hand or anything like that. It's not cycling my hand. It's just saying, like, discard those cards, and maybe I get lucky and hit something good off the top of my opponent's library.
Yeah, it's like a shitty.
You're swapping your hand for the next whatever
Yeah,
cards they have.
but not really swapping it, right? Because you don't get to keep them. They're just exiled, right?
They're
I
exiled. You
am
can play them as long as they're exiled.
That's true.
I am assuming that what my opponent has on the top of their library, which is unknown information to me, is better than what is currently in my hand. And I have to pay 7 mana to wheel that.
True.
I mean, I knew David was going to hate this because it has two things he hates the most. One, helping opponents, and two, randomness.
I'm not opposed to helping opponents so long as I'm getting help too. And I just look at it like in a mono black deck, I'm probably getting outpaced. My opponents are probably drawing more cards than me, and that's not okay.
I'm opposed to helping opponents.
Yeah, but like what David said in standard, dude, this could be nuts.
Yeah, in standard it'd be great, but I don't know.
Card's shitty.
Standard, I think this is an all-star because it literally will just never draw your opponents any cards, so that's fine. EDH, skip it.
Moving on to the final card of the spoiler video. This is Hurkyl, Master Wizard. Hurkyl, Master Wizard is 1 and 2 blue for a 2/4 legendary creature human wizard advisor. It says at the beginning of your end step, if you've cast a non-creature spell this turn, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. For each card type among non-creature spells you've cast this turn, you may put a card of that type from among the revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
This is word soup, dude.
Definitely is word soup. A lot going on there. Shane, what do we think? Blue player.
I think this could get pretty nuts pretty quick, man. So you're telling me I have to just cast a non-creature, and at my end step, look at 5, and as long as they're not creatures there, I get to just put them in my hand. I'll take that.
For the type you've cast that turn, yes.
I'll take that.
David?
I think this card is fantastic. Yeah, okay, so I understand the lens that you just looked through where it's like, okay, if I cast an instant at the beginning of my turn, then I could look at the top 5 and then I could throw an instant in my hand. If I've cast an instant and an artifact and a sorcery, though, I have much more options in terms of like what it is that I can hit and what I can put in my hand.
Yep.
This is going to draw you multiple cards. This
Yes,
is just
sir.
going to continue to fuel your deck and funnel you. So it really wouldn't surprise me if this is drawing 2 to 3 cards extra per turn on average. And I think that's great. It's also just kind of low to the ground. 3 mana is pretty easy to get out there. And at 4 toughness, it'll probably stick around for a while.
Yeah. I think it's a very, very powerful effect. In a way, it does kind of reload your hand.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it does reload your hand.
It does, Steven. You're right.
You could whiff.
He is right. I mean, there is a whiff potential here, but with you being able to potentially grab more than one thing, I mean, I don't think that the whiff potential is huge, especially if you are building around a card like this.
This
True.
thing will just dig through your deck too, dude.
Depends on how many mana you have available to cast your things too.
Well, you're gonna have at least a 3.
Well, after this comes down, it'd be turn 4.
Yeah, you're assuming you're a player who means their land drops. You haven't played with me.
That's going to be it. That is all the spoilers from today. Again, October 27th, the first day of spoiler season. So we will be back again tomorrow, possibly, if they show more spoilers. But definitely next week, all Monday through Friday, you will be getting a good daily dose. We did not talk about the uncommons today that they announced. So if you wanted to see those, go to our Instagram and follow us while you're there. That is at Guys That Magic. It's in the description. While you're in the description, go ahead and follow us on Twitter and TikTok. Those links are there too. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like this video if you liked it. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great day. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Bye-bye now.